on your Is there traffic on your site and no sales? Try Polarity. This is an easy way to analyze usability, do SEO audits, and increase conversions and leads on your site. How does it work? Sign up and add the Polarity tracking code to your site. While you're drinking coffee, Polarity collects user behavior data. What's next? Search where they don't click, analyze, and make changes on your site. Try Polarity for free and increase sales every day.
Okay, hello everybody, we're live. We're starting our panel discussion. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening everybody, depending on where you guys are joining us today. So thank you all for coming. I hope that you're having a great Tuesday, that your week is going well. And today we have a quite broad and diverse group of attendees in terms of geography. So the first thing I want to ask you to do is to go to our chat and write your name, or write where are you from, what's your company name, and just share any other information that you feel is interesting or relevant, because virtual events are not only for listening to speakers, but it's also a great opportunity to meet your colleagues, other SEO specialists. So we encourage you to be active in the chat and to meet other people from SEO industry. So while you're writing in the chat, let me continue and let me introduce you the topic of our today's event. You should see a slide now. So the topic of our panel discussion is SEO in 2022. We'll talk today about powerful SEO trends and best practices. So if this is your first time with us, with Polarity, welcome. Our company pretty often organize different virtual events, webinars, conferences. We want to share actionable tips, insights, advice with all digital marketing experts, SEO experts, UX, CRO specialists. And that's why we're inviting our speakers to share their experience, to share their learnings. And hopefully this event will give you some takeaways and some new SEO ideas. So I'll just quickly check the chat to see if, okay, I see first comment in the chat. So guys, don't hesitate, please write your name, where you're from, and we will start. So I'm sure that all of you guys will agree that SEO industry is very unpredictable, just like the algorithm and updates that Google launches from time to time. So today we'll focus on the main trends to watch and some must-have things for SEO specialists who don't want to fall behind and who don't want to lose their organic positions. Also, the best part of this event, to my mind, is that you get a chance to guide this discussion forward, to ask your questions. You can write them in a chat and we'll make sure to answer your questions. Our speakers will answer your questions. So let's move forward. Quick introduction. My name is Marta. I'm Business Development Manager at Polarity. I have a background in marketing and here at Polarity, I'm usually the host of all of our virtual events, webinars, Q&A sessions, panel discussions, because I love talking about SEO, about marketing, and that's why you will often see me if you're joining our events. But I understand that you guys probably came here not for me, but for our three amazing speakers. And the first speaker is Tessah Aihara. Tessah currently lives and runs her SEO agency in Japan. She's passionate about her company because it allows her to follow her heart in helping moms and small business owners understand and implement SEO. Tessah, can you say a couple of words to our viewers?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to chat about SEO. It's my passion. I can't stop talking about SEO. Hopefully, I could learn new things from you all.
Cool. Thank you, Tessah. And our next speaker is Marceline Yudith Prawitasari. She's Senior SEO Specialist at felmo. Yudith is a search engine enthusiast who spends her weekday putting efforts on commerce and core business at felmo. She started off in the marketing field in 2009 before dipping into SEO in 2016. Yudith, can you say a few words to our viewers?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you for making time today. I hope we have a great discussion together. Hopefully, many among you are also enthusiastic in search engine. So let's have a great time today.
Cool. Thanks a lot. And our third speaker is Karolina Valigura. She's Senior SEO Specialist at Mindvalley, where she combines her expertise in digital content marketing with her passion for personal growth, mindfulness, and goal setting. And when she's not doing SEO and blogging, she's probably in her hiking shoes, climbing yet another mountain. That's very exciting. Hi, Karolina, and can you say a couple of words to our viewers?
Of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Super excited to join the conversation and learn from each other.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, ladies. And I also have a few slides about Plurdy, a company that pulled all of those amazing speakers together and organized this event. So we are CRO and SEO tools for digital businesses that help to boost the website performance and convert your visitors into buyers. You see here all of the badges we got from top ranking websites based on multiple user reviews and recognition. So Plurdy is a platform designed basically for everyone. For SEO specialists, you can benefit from automatic SEO analysis of more than 1 million pages, detecting missing keywords to reduce risk of traffic loss, measuring the site health metrics. And in total, Plurdy allows you to save up to 30 hours monthly on your SEO analysis. Also, for digital marketing agency, Plurdy is a powerful reporting tool that can be used across teams. We have a special partnership program for digital marketing agencies, and we have the highest discounts and special offers for agencies. Also, UX and CRO specialists and analysts can benefit from other tools that we offer. It's heat maps, pop-up form builders, session recordings, event tracking, and sales performance tracking. So that's pretty much it for the intro part. I will remind you guys to not to hesitate to write your questions in the chat, your introductions in the chat. Also, you will be able to catch up with the recording of this panel discussion, so you don't have to take any notes. So you can just sit back, relax, enjoy our conversation. And let's move now to the core of our panel, SEO trends. This is the topic, and I want to give everybody a small background. So prior to this event, our team at Plurdy conducted a survey, which our speakers took part in, and this was a survey about SEO trends. And we took the biggest insights, takeaways from this survey, and want to focus on few things and few findings from this report. So first of all, we will focus on Google updates and factors that matter for SEO in 2022. 2 questions from the report. We've been asking SEO specialists about Google's November 2021 core update. Of course, after this update, there were few other updates. And as you see on the results, that 49% of SEO specialists said that they haven't seen any influence of this update on their website. So we will dive into this topic. Also, we've been asking about Google replacing the site title text in search engine result pages with other relevant text from a web page, and whether it has an impact on CTR. Interesting finding was that 46% of people who responded, they said that they cannot say exactly if this had an impact. So we'll try today to figure out how to know exactly if different updates presented by Google have influence on your website. Second big topic is content. We all know that great content is crucial for SEO, and the role of content is growing in 2022. So everybody also know that great content should align with search intent of users. 99% of people said that it is important, but we'll also dive into the content lengths, the content keywords, keyword research, content optimization. So this will be a big part. And in the end, we'll talk a bit about UX and SEO, which are two main key things for success for online businesses. So let's start with the first question. Okay, and our first question is about Google's core updates. And this question for Tessah. I want to start with you. So Tessah, what site owners should know about Google's core updates? What are they? Why are they important?
Okay, so I mean, I think all SEO specialists and all listeners already know about updates. Technically, it's just like a way for Google to make sure that the search and result page or all of the sites in there are high quality, because at the end of the day, Google has a business to protect. So it's a user focused platform, so it needs to be always updated, and it want to make sure that all of the result basically on page one are useful for all of the users or for everybody.
Great answer. Yudith, maybe have something to add to this? What will you say about Google's core updates?
So what I can say about the core update is that now that I think we should anticipate the changes of how the metrics are calculated, because I think a lot of people made mistake of how these metrics works. They take it as a hard number and then as a benchmark, whereas actually, for example, when you do a lighthouse test, it can be that one case is actually caused by practically the same thing. So if you fix one thing, both cases actually could be fixed. So I think just don't use it as a hard benchmark, rather use it as like a, basically kind of like an approximate, I would say.
Again, how was it in your case for felmo's website? Have you seen any impact of November's 2021 or May 2022 core updates? Are you measuring it? And if yes, how are you measuring it?
So to be honest, as far as we are trying to measure everything, we are trying to put tracking on everything possible. However, it is difficult to say because we are doing a lot of improvement, including the content quality. So we are not really impacted by the changes. But then again, it's difficult to say whether it's because we are not having the impact due to quality or any other factors. There are too many factors involved, I think, to conclude a yes or a no.
Great answer. I will agree with you that if you are working consistently on your content and your website and you're trying to keep this good quality, it will, like, you are almost safe before any of the updates that Google is doing. Karolina, I wanted to ask you, how do you think websites can make sure that new Google's update will not harm their website and will not make the websites go down? Do you have any practices, any advice for this?
Sure. I would always start with placing yourself in the context of SEO in your business. And what I mean by this is start with the audit, see what is typically what were the updates in the past, and how did your website react to this? Did you actually see that to go down, or did it improve? Just to understand the pattern and maybe identify what was always your biggest pitfall, let's say. So if it was about content quality, then you would identify that that's your focus area. And also coming from the SEO audit, that you should have already a clear roadmap. And once you identify all those biggest areas of focus, then it's time to just prioritize them and take one at a time. So I would say the best way to prepare is to analyze how it was in the past, and understand the biggest leverage point, and just tackle that in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. Thank you for that. Yudith, coming back to you, another thing that Google did in 2021, they started replacing the title tags in search engine result page with other relevant text from the website. How do you think? Is it a good thing or bad? And have you seen any influence of this update in your case?
I would say the typical German word jein, which means it's a yes and a no. So let's say if there's a clear concept in terms of each of your pages, it can be a good thing because then it's automatically changed. And then it's kind of like an automatic update / optimization for you. In my case, not really, because when this happened, I was still in the middle of cleaning up the pages. I'm talking about like creating a clear concept within each section / pages of the site. So when it happened, it has not been fully implemented yet. So I had a lot of duplicates, and now I still have to like work on them because there are new team members who are now also involved in it. So I'm just helping to basically organize them.
Oh, makes sense. Thanks a lot. And in the beginning, I already said that SEO is a pretty unpredictable thing, and measuring all of those updates, influence of Google's core updates, all different things is pretty hard. But I wanted to ask Tessah if you have any recommendations for the tracking. How can SEO specialists make sure they are tracking this influence and to protect themselves, to see if Google core updates had any impact on their website? Tessah, are you with us? Yeah, I think Tessah maybe lost a connection. Maybe Karolina will help to answer this question about metrics. Do you have any specific metrics, any specific processes for tracking this?
For tracking the click-through rate?
Influence, yes, of the updates introduced by Google.
Well, I would typically just look at how the traffic fluctuates on our internal data tracking tools, but also checking on simple Google Search Console. That's usually my go-to tool, and check before and after, understanding what was the impact on specific queries or on the pages. And that can give a good clue already on what was the nature of the change.
That's good advice. Tessah, I see you're back with us. So I wanted to ask you about tracking the influence of Google updates on the website. Do you have any secret to that?
I'm so sorry about that. Life of a mom, my baby just cried. But anyway, okay. So in my world, the type of sites that we build is like niche sites. So it's heavily product reviews and then how-to guides. So normally when we do our content planning, we already have those key pages, if you will, for lack of a better term, that we kind of like closely monitor. If so, let's say we have a title tag, and then and those title tags are created primarily for CTR. So and including the meta description. So, and we observe that Google now kind of like pick words in your content, not basically using your actual title, but most of the time in my world, again, most of these title tags of our content, they stay as is. So we kind of like track them using Google Analytics, Search Console, and also Ahrefs. So we we love looking at the top pages of our sites, of our client site, and it's always like, say, and we don't really closely monitor because we already know the goal for the next 3 months, and then what are the pages, the key pages that we want to rank. So we kind of like give it time. So when we say we track it, so let's say we build a page right now and we already know based on our strategy, based on our goal, let's say it's a short-term strategy content. So we know after a week, or not a week, sorry, after a month or 3 weeks, we would get back to that page and see how it's performing. So if we see that, oh, it's ranking and it's actually on the top 5 pages of our site according to Ahrefs and according to Google Analytics, so then we know, then one, we did the title tag correctly, we did the strategy correctly with our title tags, how we would want to, we would always want to create title tags that would entice the readers to click, and that's CDR. So we know that, oh, people are not clicking, we are on the top 3, but we're not seeing clicks, what's happening? So okay, we need to improve it, tell our content writers and also our content team to kind of like take note of that. We use the keyword and we use a certain modifier, but it didn't drive clicks. So that's how we kind of like monitor and improve our CDRs with our title tags at the moment.
Great answer. Thanks a lot. I will agree that like it is very important to try to keep your title tags, your content on a very high quality level. This way you're basically protected, because if you really provide your users, your website visitors with a good content, there is nothing to be worried about, almost nothing to be worried about. I think here in the chat one question. It is more a general question. I will probably ask Yudith to answer this. Where do you find the new trends, new SEO trends?
So there are several ways you can do that. My favorite would be, I always start my day with reading updates. So there are certain sites like searchenginejournal.com where you can get the updates, but you can also follow John Mueller, for example, whether it's in Twitter or whether it's in YouTube. He's like the key spokesperson of Google. So if there is anything interesting, he would have been a heads up of everybody.
Cool. Karolina, what's your source of new trends in SEO?
Searchenginejournal.com, number one. I would usually go there because they have very holistic, so you can see from different perspectives, as sometimes the changes that Google shows on paid search, it can give you an indication if that's also on organic search, like what they're going, how much more space will be taken from ads, for example, what does it mean for SEO? And so Search Engine Journal would definitely be my number one. And then on LinkedIn influencers, definitely some top SEO names there. That's always a good way to find out what is happening around.
Awesome. Tessah, what's your way to get the freshest SEO trends?
So I like checking. I'm in a lot of different FB groups. My one is Fat Graph by Nick Jordan, and I like following Lily Ray. Every time there's an update, Lily Ray is always the first person to offer her analysis. So it's so easy to understand, and also Search Engine Journal.
Cool. So everybody agreed on Search Engine Journal. That's amazing. Okay, great. So moving forward, I want now to focus more on content part, to talk more deeply about content, how to create a good content, what are like your best practices. And I showed a result from our survey that 99% of SEO specialists highlighted that in 2022, it's important to create content that aligns with a search intent. But probably a very broad question, but still how to create this content that aligns with search intent. Yudith, maybe you'll try to answer this.
Yeah, for me, it's really important to be strategic because, like, for example, Felmo does both commerce And we also have magazine, for example. So it's really, really important to do the, for example, keyword clustering, which needs really to be strategic. You need to cluster it and then divide it between what you would put in the magazine and what you would put in the product pages, for example. So the intent, you then have to also cross-check again which kind of audience should be where. So I think cross-checking this, ideally also cross-checking with the clustering that I would do with the ads, for instance, I think would make a lot of difference already, because then it also really would shape the intent. And of course, what I usually would do is also in terms of the targeting that you would do in the content, it's really, really useful to be very strategic in how you would formulate and basically organize your headings. And third, most of all, I think it's really also really useful if you would do optimization in terms of Google Passage, because then the queries, or if they're like very, very specific questions, let's say, or / long tail keywords that you would target there, they can, for example, also perform independently despite of however the whole text or the whole page performs by itself.
Mm-hmm. I really like that you said about this strategic approach to headings to your content, but can you explain a bit more like how you're doing this? How are you deciding and implementing this strategic approach to your content?
Yeah, for example, like clustering is just the first step, right? But then you have to decide which one you would focus on and why. So this also would help to basically have like a mini like a table or organization, how you would like divide those main keywords, which one would be the main, which one would be the long tail, and why. And this is also like kind of a guide how you would do and structure your text. So this way, everything is basically more comprehensive, and then it's clear the intent, not just in terms of like the keywords / then you would have like the right audience that landed there, but then you make sure that they also find what they're looking for, because all the Google updates is really, really focusing not just on user experience, but also on relevance. And this then helps both sides.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point, actually, because it's true that Google is analyzing the query context. It's analyzing what kind of information user is really trying to see. And I know that it's important to focus not only on those primarily keywords, but also to include like those long-tailed keywords, secondary keywords, like some semantically related keywords. And it's important to do a good research. And I wanted to ask Karolina, how do you find those long-tailed keywords, semantically related keywords, and how important do you think is adding those kind of keywords to your content?
I think it's super important, and it adds another dimension, more texture to the copy, especially if it's a long form. So if you're talking about informational intent and say that you want to target some informational keyword like life goals, I'm in the mindfulness / goal setting industry, so that's typically on my mind, the type of content that we're creating. And so once you've identified your target keyword, you can use different techniques. So my go-to will be Ahrefs, and you would have the related searches there. So if you do your keyword research with the primary one, it will also show you related keywords. Another tool that you could use is SEMrush. So there is this content planner. I don't quite recall exactly the name, but you can find the tab where it specifically shows and pulls those semantically related keywords based on the primary one that you want to find out. And so I always use those two. And then on the non-paid kind of like free tools that everybody can use is simply to go on Google search and look at the people also ask. So that will show you the questions that people ask around the keyword, and can kind of help you understand what is the context behind it, what is it exactly, like what is the deep dive that people want to find out more related to the topic, especially if your primary keyword is like 2 words or 1 word. And then lastly, related searches on Google on SERP, where you can find those. And so especially what I found is for when you're working with copywriters, adding those to their brief can help them write better content so that it's more aligned with the actual context and be more relevant to what you're trying to rank for.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. Tessah, actually the same question to you. What is your approach to researching the semantic-related keywords, long-tailed keywords, and like what, how important is including those keywords? What's your opinion on that?
Well, the number one answer, the most important thing while you're including this keyword is to nail down your topical relevance. You don't want to just write a content that would kind of like basically discuss a topic at a higher level, especially if you're discussing a topic for a certain audience or a niche. You want to deep dive on the topic and want to make sure that you are discussing it as a subject matter expert. So, okay, AKA you're nailing down the topical relevance. So, like Karolina, I heavily use tools, Ahrefs, and I used to use SEMrush, but I always find myself checking Google page one and just check what are these high authoritative sites talking about, what is page one and page two showing me, what are the sites discussing, what are their headings. So that's how I find all of this related headings, and eventually for me, the reason why I don't hire this is another reason why I don't hire SEO writer, because if I know that I tell my writers what to talk about, then I don't need to tell them that use this specific words, use this keywords and whatnot, because I know that it comes naturally that if we put quality on, in front of everything, then it would come as natural that we would include semantically related keywords, because that's how you explain things. That's how we discuss things back in the days where we don't have this jazzy, fancy names about keywords, about terms. So yeah, so well, the basic step is to go to keyword research tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, and then verify it. Always verify it as a human intervention on what does page one show you.
Amazing. I think it's very good point about naturally creating the content, and it will automatically has all of those long-tailed and semantic-related keywords. But I also know that on the other side, it is important to do this keywords research, to have this list of keywords that have to be included in the text. And I want to ask you this: what is like the sweet spot in this situation? Like, do you have this specific list of keywords, how many times this keyword should appear in the text, or you give like more freedom to you or your copywriters in terms of creating this content?
So for me, actually, I'm not using this approach. Like, I don't really use density ever, actually. So my approach is actually a little bit more similar to Tessah. So I took a peek at the SERPs and plus the competitors. So then I can see my chances of have like measure the quality of content I need to have or I need to produce in order to have a good performance, because then I know what my competitors are already doing, what the top 3 SERPs are already doing. So then I can think, okay, so let's say they have a really good site authority and they have a really good quality content. So maybe I needed to do something more. It gives actually also a good picture on how you should be doing things, because also like aiming high is good, but being realistic in terms of SEO is also important. And this is one of the way to do that. So first see like the chances in terms of, the keyword difficulty, but also how well are others already doing.
Amazing. Okay, now I want to come back to Tessah. and dive into one really interesting topic, which is a niche content. Can you tell a bit to our viewers what is a niche content? How do you research and how do you create it? Tessah, you're muted.
As the word tells us, niche, it's a targeted content or a target or content for a targeted or specific audience. A lot of people would say that niche is a small size or small size or small volume audience. It kind of like it's not what it means. It means that it's a subset of a bigger audience, but it doesn't mean that it's a small in terms of volume. I'd like to always clarify that, because a lot of people would say, oh, I don't want to target niche because I want to play big. But really, it could be a large volume of a specific subset. Let's say a women magazine. You don't want to just build a women's site. You want to make sure that, okay, what do I want to talk about women? Let's say, oh, I want to talk about women's skincare. Okay, but then again, when you talk about skincare, it's huge. There's a lot of things you could talk about skincare. Okay, I want to talk about women and skincare, but I want to talk about budget or kind of like affordable line of skincare. So then that's going to be my topic or the theme of my site. So suddenly you move from being a women site or women magazine to a women site discussing about skincare, but not just about skincare, affordable skincare. And that is a niche. And that is huge, to be honest, because you're talking to women all over the world using affordable skincare. So it's a niche in a way that it is so targeted, but it's huge. Now, how do you find niche content? My again, in my background, I build site with money in mind. I mean, that is so brutal when when you think about it, but all of us here, we want to earn money like Google. We are here for business. So but that said, you want to make sure that you provide value, because for us, purchase comes after you convince your reader that they need to buy a certain product or they need to buy a certain service. So it always goes back to quality. So when we find a niche to target or niche content to discuss about, we ask ourselves, is this something that people want to know or want to read on the internet? Are there audience out there looking for something in this specific niche? Are we going to be able to monetize it afterwards? So that's how we do content, and that's how we find and research it. But in terms of approaching how to create it, that's a different strategy, because although our goal in mind is to create a site that would earn money and would have traffic and would and it's synonymous to aka rank, because you're not going to rank if you're not going to, I mean, if you're not going to earn money and traffic if you're not going to rank. So how do you create the content? So the content would always target the funnel. You have the awareness stage, the consideration stage, and the decision stage. So we create content on all steps, on all along those in all parts of those journey, and we want to make sure that we are not just creating content that would drive sale, because again, you want to nail your topical relevance. And I want to tell a lot of things about it, but I'm gonna I'm gonna stop from here, because I think, yeah, you would have a lot of questions, and I think I would reserve my answers for that.
Okay, great. Like, just to summarize, can you say that like going niche and creating this niche content is like the next trend in SEO? Because ranking for those general keywords is pretty hard now. And if you're finding this very specific, very like targeted search query, like, can you say that this is the next thing all SEO specialists should do?
I think to answer that, in general, I would always ask, what is the right way to approach creating a business? So, meaning every business has to start somewhere. So you could not just be like a Wikipedia. It didn't start like a Wikipedia from the start. It started from a small, baby step. So I always believe that a niche site, you could always start small, then you could be a big site or an authority site. So I might start as a skincare site targeting about affordable lines of skincare, makeup, and whatnot. But as I grow authority, my topical relevance, then I become bigger. Then I would end up discussing all kind of skincare. So I believe, and I might be biased, it's always niching down and learning how to brand it. That's how I would attack, yeah, building a niche site. Yep.
Awesome summary. Okay, so now moving from a niche content back to some keywords, I think we have a question in a chat, and I want this question to give Karolina to answer this question. What keywords research tools are you recommending? Like you already mentioned Ahrefs and SEMrush, and like I will add a little bit from my side here. Maybe there are also some tools that you're using afterwards, after you already published your content on the website. And how are you looking for keyword optimization, or maybe adding some new keywords to this content?
Got it. Yes. So after the content is published, I would, of course, see how it performs. I would see what are the ranking fluctuations. I would look into Google Search Console because I want to understand what keywords, what queries do we have impressions on, which of them have the most clicks, to see if I hit or missed with the intent, and have I contextualized that content enough to address the search intent or not. So I would typically go into Search Console to understand this performance. And then, sorry, what was the next question after that?
It was in general about keyword research tools. Like you mentioned SEMrush, Ahrefs, Google Search Console. Anything else?
Yes. So after, say, that also works for keyword research for new content. If I already had competitors in mind, say if I'm like, I want to be like that page, that competitor, which is way bigger than where we are now, but this is where we're going strategically. So I would just do competitive analysis on what is the content gap, and you can use Ahrefs for that. And I know there are other tools. If I'm not mistaken, BrightTouch also can do that for you, but I'm sure there are many other tools. And just to see what are the content gaps, because maybe I'm just not noticing something and I haven't even thought about that keyword, but the competitor who is in the same niche or the same industry is actually capitalizing on it. So if I want to go in that direction, then maybe I should create content on that. So I find competitor analysis, finding those content gaps, very valuable to see things that maybe are not so obvious while being inside my own business.
Got it. There is actually a second part of this question, but I want to ask Yudith about that. It is also one of the trends, using AI for content creating. Do you recommend using artificial intelligence for content, for drafts? And maybe like also you can say if Google is watching this and if there is any risk of getting penalized for using AI.
I mean, Google itself is basically also AI, right? So there are a lot of ways on how you can see or approach this. And it really, I mean, coming to the previous question also, because it's related, this is like asking a chef, what's your favorite knife? While it comes back then to the statement or the question, what are you trying to cut? So for example, if you really need like a lot of amount of content generated quickly, and you don't need a super heavy, let's say, really educational or scientifically backed content, it might be something that you can try. And so far, there's no indication how Google would penalize that, but I wouldn't say that it's not possible. Although there's like I said again, there's no indication yet how this would play, because like the trend hasn't exactly got there yet, but it is going there.
And are you using AI for content creation yourself?
For us, no. We don't use AI. We still have like actual copywriters do that, just because at the moment it's not necessary. But it doesn't mean that it's not possible to do in the future. Actually, it might be something that we consider in the future when we expand, for example.
Great. And actually, I have a question related to that I wanted to ask you. It's about content quality and some metrics about the content. It's also like when we are creating content using AI, somebody may say that we are risking the quality because AI cannot create the same high quality content as a human can create. So I wanted to ask you about some things you look at when you're evaluating the content. How to know if it's a good quality content or not, what things you will look at.
So for me, my approach may be a little unorthodox, because I'm not only checking like the targeting and everything and these like, you know, standard methods or metrics, but I also see, is this something for us? It's the same like when Tessah was saying about, you know, when she was giving example about affordable beauty care. In the end of the day, it is about brand, because you can do a lot of things. You can have this subset, you know, expand into like something that is still in the niche. Then you have also an amazing content plan, for example. But then it comes back to the question, what is my goal with this project? Is it our brand? You know, it goes back in the end to this. So then it goes back also to the project itself, to the strategy that we are formulating. Is it something that we are going for? What is the goal? Is it something that is still aligned with the brand and with our business model? So this is also something that I think is actually really important, that sometimes we just skip, because we are really can be too focused on reaching targets in terms of generating traffic, in terms of creating quality content. But in the end of the day, this is actually also the important core of quality content. Because why are we creating the content? Because we are doing business, just like Tessah said.
That's a very good point. Okay, so we have next question in the chat, and it's not about content. It's actually about ads, so we haven't been talking about this today. But the question is how to beat the competition, or the competitors that pays a lot of for ads. What SEO strategies would you use? And I want to address this question to Tessah.
How do they beat a competition that basically that heavily rely on ad? Is that a question, right?
Yes, I think it means like when your competitor is paying a lot for ads and they are showing on this top 3 or 4 positions, what SEO strategies can you use to, use for these competitors?
It's gonna be a cliche. I don't know if it's gonna be useful, but for me, it's always content. Your content velocity or your content quality and plus content velocity would always beat competition, provided that your audience is on Google. I mean, look on Google, because a lot of don't get me wrong, some brands or some niches are better doing ads. There are companies that are good doing ads, but there are companies that we work with, the companies or the clients that we work with, they could leverage organic traffic. So for example, I work with course creators that are heavily invested on ads, like social media ads, Instagram ads, Facebook ads. But these course creators are missing the fact that they could leverage their own site, put their content there, write discuss all of those things that they talk about on social media in terms of content. A lot of podcasters do that. They would explain their their topics because they're the subject matter expert in audio, but they don't put it in writing. So then they're not ranking. So those kind of clients are what we're focusing this year. So they could beat competition writing content, but of course, it might take time. With SEO, it's a journey. Again, that's something that I want them to remember because ads is different. Ads and SEO is different. Ads would kind of like give you an instant result. Boom, there's the result. There is the numbers. There are KPIs. But the thing is, it's kind of like gives you diminishing return, right? You earn this amount of money, you spend here, but as you go, you see that it's getting expensive, you're not getting the result. Unlike SEO, it's slow at the beginning because you are planting the seed, and then you get traffic, and then boom, it says a snowball effect, and in fact it's free. I don't understand why any brand would not invest in a free marketing tool. So yeah.
That's a very good point. SEO is definitely a long-term strategy, and you should be patient. You will not see results in the very beginning. And ads, like you're running the ads today, but nobody knows what will be tomorrow, what will be the price for the click in ads. So really building your SEO and creating this good content, making sure your pages are ranking, even if you get this fourth or fifth position below the ads, it is still very good, because I know that a lot of people, they are going and checking the organic results first, because they know that the ads are not always like the ad content that is promoted is not always the best content and the best site. So putting your focus on SEO is always a good strategy. So we have one more question in the chat, which is also on another topic about local SEO strategy. Isabella asked how do you create local SEO strategy? She has a hair salon in London and also provide wedding services in London. I'm not sure who of our speakers have some experience with local SEO strategies. Maybe someone will volunteer to answer this question.
What does she do again? Sorry. She
Hair salon in London and
hair salon.
wedding services in London.
I could share something, but again, it's local. It's the same. The principle is the same. You want to be relevant, right? Like for example, if you want to rank in Japan, you want to rank in Canada, you want to rank in USA, you want to rank in Australia. Some of our sites rank in Canada, Australia, and because you want to see the gap. Then you want to make sure that when you are in a city, let's say, well, so local SEO, they do it differently. They customize it in terms of city. They have their service pages, they have their location pages, and but it's the same thing. You gotta have a site that would be relevant to your niche. So it lies down on your content. You need to build your service pages properly. If it's a hair salon, so you want to make sure that people understand what does your salon offer and where are you located. And then if you are in a certain city, you want to make sure that Google also sees that you are in that city. So what do other people do? Things that you can do in this city, right? For example, things that you can do, and let's say I'm in Toyohashi, a city in Japan. So things you can do in Toyohashi, festivals that you could attend in Toyohashi, and then you link that to your service page for that specific city. So that's how they built relevance, internal linking, and whatnot. That's how. And again, this concept is also the same with how we do sites for global market. It's always making sure your site is relevant to your niche. So then when you are in local SEO, so your niche is that city in that industry. So yeah, I'm not actively doing local SEO, but back in the days I did rank and rent. So that's how I rank sites.
Thank you, Tessah. I think that's a great answer to this question. Okay, let's now get a little bit back to our SEO trends report and trends that we identified in our survey. So one of the things that we have been asking was about the amount of content, the length of articles and content added on the page. And I want to ask Karolina, how do you think how much content is good for SEO? Do you have any specific numbers, and how do you identify how long should be this content on your website?
I think the short answer is it depends on the keyword. And also I love the metaphor that Yudith said a while ago is what is as if you ask your chef, what is your favorite knife? And then a better question is what are you trying to cut? Similar goes to SEO. The question, what is the keyword that you're trying to rank for? And that will show you the indication of what is the search intent. So an example, if you're trying to focus more on the informational intent, then of course you would think more about a blog post, maybe a longer form, in which case something between 1,500. But again, you would have to see what is already ranking. And so before going to, Googling what is the best, how many words per page should I have, try to analyze SERP and see what's already ranking there, because it might not be that much, or you might find out it's actually super long and more of the cornerstone type of content. So starting with understanding what is your keyword first, what is the search intent. If you're trying to rank for a keyword that is more navigational or transactional, if someone is asking hairstyle, a price, or affordable hairstyle in this neighborhood, then you might not need a long form content. You just need to have very straightforward answer. And even though with that, just having content optimized for feature snippet might be enough to earn you that click. So I would look into also trying to optimize for feature snippets so that you can get that straightforward answer if that's the case for that index. So it really comes down to keyword research.
That's very true. Thank you for that. And I also wanted to ask about this featured snippet, which is basically very short piece of text that basically answers the main query. And how do you think, is it important now to try to optimize the content for this short featured snippet? And how can you do that? How can you get into this featured snippet?
I love that question because this was actually on my team's mind for the past 6 months or so. So I can share from my experience. It doesn't mean that it will work for every business because, different rules for industries. But what I will say is feature snippets are a great way to improve your clicks, improve traffic. In the past, I would think that maybe it's not really the case because if someone just sees the answer right away on SERP, they don't need to click, but you're still showing your brand. And I actually noticed that we increased with the number of feature snippets growing, also clicks on those exact keywords were growing. That's what we've noticed. So it is a good thing in my experience. Secondly, how to optimize it. So it's a combination of UX and content. So definitely make it easy for Google bots to crawl and to see that this is the question, this is the answer. So once you've identified the questions that you want to get the feature snippets for, see what's already ranking, always competitor analysis, I will always repeat that, see how they are answering. And just try to answer this as in a straightforward way as possible. So question, short answer, and then you can elaborate. What I've noticed with working with copywriters is that maybe they would first want to set context for this and then answer. And then at the end of the paragraph, you'll actually have your answer. But that's not the way it works for feature snippets. You need to give the answer right away. Bullet points, table formatting typically also works for feature snippets. So make sure to optimize your content like that. See that is easily scannable. And definitely maybe that sounds very basic, but if you have a header that is or a subheader that is your question, make sure to not put an image right below it, because then it like blocks from actually picking up that there's an answer to the question that you're trying to get the feature snippet for.
Cool. Thank you for this answer. Okay, and last question to this blog about content. I want to ask Yudith, because I believe you haven't been talking about tools that you're using, your favorites, your top things that you can't imagine your day-to-day SEO work without. Like what tools you're using for keyword analysis, for SEO audits. Can you share that?
Yes. So for me, I don't have an exact regular, I do check, I don't have exact regular routine. I do check on weekly basis the reports on console and also from Ahrefs to see the site audit, because I always make Ahrefs crawl on the weekends just so I can have it ready on Monday and I check everything. But it really depends on the projects that we are doing. But for example, like right now, we are working on a lot of page layouts plus quality content. So of course, then we talk about like the impact of the changes of the copies and UX. So we do check, for example, before and after with A/B testing, we do heat maps. So there are a lot of things that we do differently depending on which project or what are we looking for basically as a project goal. So the way we do SEO in Felmo is really like project-based, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you. So let's now dive into a bit like a new trend, a new topic about UX. In the beginning, I already showed that UX and SEO in combination, it's basically a key to success for online businesses. The role of user experience and providing a good user experience on the website is now extremely important. And I want to ask Karolina, are you focusing on UX improvements, and are you like measuring and trying to get to increase like the user experience on your website in terms of its influence on SEO?
Yeah, so we definitely are, and at the end of the day, with every business, I imagine it comes down to how much revenue is SEO bringing you. It may take longer than paid channels, but at the end of the day, we need to measure that. And so when it comes to UX, the way I understand it is, are the users taking the action that you want them to take? Are they taking the action that you want them to take? So if there is a specific call to action that you're putting on the page, even if it's a blog, if it's a brand or sales page, then you can see those leads are actually coming through. And so that's definitely the focus for my team. And redesigning it doesn't only involve SEO. So that's the challenge, because we would have to work with other teams. Like it always requires maybe help from the engineering side, help from the graphic design. Traditionally, at least in my experience, we wouldn't have an in-house UX in the SEO team. That would always be someone either from an agency or from another team. So that alignment is needed. But so it is a challenge. It is an interesting one. But at the end of the day, when we think of what's like Google is trying to achieve with search, is to give the best answer to whatever someone is typing on Google. So if whatever they're searching, they want to give the most relevant answer in the quickest way possible. So if we show to Google that they are getting this answer, and so, for instance, they just want to check the price of something, just because they spend on the page like 5 or 10 seconds doesn't necessarily mean they have a poor user experience. We can measure that with the amount of returning users. And that's an indication that they actually liked your answer and they will just come back to you. So I would look a lot into returning users and things like time on page, if long time on page is something that you're looking for example, with blog articles.
Mm-hmm. And do you take into account the scroll depths and like some heat maps, maybe clicks? If you're talking maybe about like blog articles or longer content, do you use those insights, and do you have those insights from some UX researchers in your company? Is it like helping you in content rating?
Right now, I don't. I have to be honest, but it's something that I would love to look into, especially if we're taking the context of only a blog post, and if I'm scattering around different call to actions across the article. So I want to see what is the percentage of clicks that are clicking on the first banner versus the one at the bottom, and this data will help me a lot to see, do users prefer they just click at the end because the content was so interesting that they actually read until the end and then they made the decision to click, or they just got the answer right away, or they are like, I don't know, this is maybe not that interesting for them. What they want to do is take action immediately, and that's when it makes sense to put the call to action maybe a little bit above. So this type of data currently we're not using, but definitely a plan for the future. Yeah, I see a lot of value there.
Cool. Yeah, I think this is definitely a good thing to do. Tessah, next question is for you. How do you think how usability improvements impact organic traffic, and does UX have an influence on ranking on your position in Google?
Pretty much similar to Karolina. We would check because we had one site wherein we are getting a lot of impression, but we're not seeing improvement in traffic. And true enough, when we check Google Search Console, there are few clicks with regards to the visibility of the site. So that tells us, hey, we're ranking on page 1, but people are not clicking. So if people are not clicking, then Google would eventually demote us because, hey, I'm ranking the site on page 1, but people are not clicking. So then I'm not serving my audience. So that has been the result that we're seeing. And so it's kind of like a wheel. You're in hamster wheel wherein you create good content, but then your title tag is, or your meta description are lacking. So then it's not helping you to get those clicks. And if you don't get those clicks, then Google realizes that you're not nailing down the search intent. So you're going to be demoted. Or the other way around, you're ranking on bottom, and then suddenly people are clicking over and choosing over you over the results on top 3, and they're staying on the side. So Google realizes, hang on a minute, I'm ranking the side on the bottom, but people are actually going on that side and actually staying. And not only that, they're actually clicking on other pages. So I would promote that site. I would show it more often to my users. So then we start saying, okay, so this page started ranking to different keywords. So that's what we have observed. And I mean, since 2009, I do niche sites, and that's the reason why we would always try to create supporting pages, because the goal is for the user to stay on the site. Why? Because you want to make the user experience good. So if they're looking about skincare, affordable skincare, and then they find your site finding about the best affordable drugstore foundation, you want to make sure also to offer them, hey, by the way, if you're looking for foundation, we found, or we have a roundup post about the best affordable lipsticks that you could find in drugstore. And obviously I need a lipstick to pair with that foundation. So you make their life easier, and then Google would kind of like, promote you for that, or give score on high score on that.
That's very true. Yudith, interesting to hear your opinion about user experience and its role for SEO. What are your recommendations for UX improvements that can positively influence organic search?
So I think the usability in the site is a given, and Tessah already covered that pretty well. But again, when you talk about intent, it really goes back to what are the users searching? What kind of media, what kind of format? Because, for example, if, let's say, in a scenario where I'd be looking for recipes, let's say I want to bake a cake. I want to bake a cheesecake. Google might have assumed that it's easier for people to follow a recipe while watching a video, because then, well, I need to bake, I need my hands, I can't scroll through the phone, right? So it might have, a better placement in the top search. It might have possibly got placement 0 / picture snippet, kind of. And remember that now SERP looks different. So even if you're number 1, or even if you're number 2, let's say, you can still have in between. If you're, let's say, if you have just like a written recipe and you're number 2 or number 3 because they put a video in between, that's still around 700 pixels below. It still would have been affecting your CTR a lot. And then, so it's then comes back again to understanding what are the needs of the users, what are they looking for, what kind of experience. So experience doesn't necessarily only cover when they landed on your site. Yes, if they landed on your site before that, you need to understand that. So sometimes this is also a different perspective that I feel like sometimes it's easily missed, but it's actually really important.
Mm-hmm. And a bit similar question that I had to Karolina about tracking this user experience influence on SEO. As an SEO specialist, do you have any insights from UX team or some UX specialists in your company about how users engage with the content, how far they scroll, what they click on, and does this kind of information is helpful in creating more quality and quality content and content that really answers the question that user is searching for?
Yes. So the type of insight that we're getting is the showing up of the call to action. So whatever format it is, if it's a button, if it's a banner, if they need to click to another site, what they've noticed is definitely, so whatever is working for conversion on the sales page, so at the bottom of the funnel, because typically, at least in my context, I would more go for the top of the funnel, so more information type of queries. But whatever they say that is working for conversions there, I can take it as a hint. And if I want to make that page like, okay, now click. And so I think placement is very important. So the insights of placement of the call to actions is what I would take into account. But at the end of the day, if it's a blog post and the main thing that you're trying for people to do is to read through, and then I wouldn't exaggerate too much. So that's about the call to actions. But other things such as if it's easy to read. I think it's more of a very foundational thing that, of course, any content should be easy to read. So if you're using good formatting, if you're breaking it down through headers, H1s, H2s, entries, etc., if you're using tables, if you're using graphics, and that can definitely improve that user experience. So I would talk with the teams that are working more on the conversion direct sales and see what inputs they have and see if it's applicable to the search intent that I'm trying to tackle, and take the good things that are working from there.
Cool. Thank you very much for this answer. So I think we can all agree that it is important to have this user experience on the high level to make sure that user finds the information that he's looking for. But we also cannot agree that users behave differently, and very often their behavior depends on the device type they are searching from. And on this note, I wanted to move to next trend about mobile responsive content. And I wanted to ask Tessah, what are like your advice for mobile optimization in your SEO? Like, do you analyze and create kind of like have recommendations on creating content separately for desktop and for mobile?
Well, actually, no, because most of our client sites right now and most of our in-house projects we noticed that all of our audience or most of our audience use mobile. So I always tell my team and my writers, I don't know if this would sound very what's that? Overacting or what? But when we create paragraphs, we don't use more than 3 sentences, just because we know that our visitors are heavily using their mobile phones to check our sites. So first, of course, talking more about on page wise, we want to make sure that the layout is really easy to read. You don't and again, it's always just content, because the design, it's it's just nowadays people are so, how do you call that, like these two ladies told us that it already changed the behavior of people. They don't look on designs anymore. They just want, the patience of people right now decreased. If they research for something, they want it now. So when you have a searcher using mobile, you want to make sure that the information is really clear. It could easily be visible. It could be easily read. So it should be not a block of text in front of them. So more on that. And also, if we have some tables, we want to make sure that those are mobile friendly. And if we have some call to action, we want to make sure as well that how we want to check how they appear on desktop and mobile. So we always check, but it's easier right now because we only use WordPress, and we all know WordPress. They have this, all of the builders right now, and I forgot. What was the theme that we're using, generate press. They have this that they show you how would it look like on mobile. So everything is streamlined right now. It's all about simplicity, actually, and it's all about asking, if I'm going to be reading this content, I'm going to be visiting this site, what do I want to see? So yeah, that's always the question that I would tell my specialist doing all of this on page, that always put yourself in the shoes of this audience, and what do you want to see on our site. If the question is, if the post is a question post, or if it's a pillar post, how do you want to navigate the information? If it makes sense that we have a graphic here, put it there. If it makes sense that we have a video below that heading, then we should add that. And if it makes sense that we have a call to action after the conclusion, and if we have some recommendations, let's put it there. It's always about, again, going back to you, Yudith, the intent of the consumer, and what is Google actually telling us about this intent. Because I don't want to like reinventing the wheel. I always just check what Google is ranking, because then pretty much it would tell you what do you need to produce.
That's very true. And also very good point about attention span, which is now very, very short for the users. And I wanted to ask you this about how can we keep the users on the website? Tessah already shared like this advice about keeping the paragraphs maximum 3 sentences long. Do you do something similar? And also, what do you think about using different content, not only text, but also some graphics, infographics, some images, videos in content as a way to keep people interested and keep people reading?
Okay, so I'm trying to make this short because talking about this topic, I can take an hour on my own. But I agree with Tessah though. Like, really, I don't care if it's a text, if it's an image, is it infographic, is it anything? I hate it when it's a huge block on mobile. Always optimize on mobile first. So I can be testing on my phone and scrolling. What is this huge block of text? Why is it above the fold but taking so much space? No, please fix it. Just no. Why is the font loading too slow? So these are like the elements that seems like it's design or technical, but it's really not, because it's also, especially if it's above the fold, like how fast the font loads, for example. Imagine you're trying to read the information. Tessah already re-emphasized they want it now. And when they want it now and it's not loading, they're going to go away. So these are the elements that are important. So I think these are the things that has to be covered first. But of course, it's actually going back to our previous topic when when I was talking about like, okay, intent. What are they looking for? If I'm looking for a recipe, I need my hands free. Maybe like a video would be considered more relevant by Google. So check these possibilities, and then based on this, of course, you can also research and even like also test, for example, what format would be more valuable for the users. Starting from there, you can brainstorm a lot of ideas, because I've also had a similar experience with this where we had a huge competitors. This is going back to also the previous topic. We had a huge competitor when I was working in the previous company. So let's say they have a lot of, I could just say they have a lot of money to pay on ads, and including paid search. So that's also something that's, to consider. But going back to USP, what do we have that they don't? See, like, for example, the product back then was Bio Baby Food. So Bio Baby Food, we have a list of very, very good ingredients. We have a service that they don't have. We have a abonnement service. So the USP is that it's very practical for mothers. Tessah might could relate. Imagine every few weeks you have a certain amount of milk boxes, so you don't have to carry a huge pile of milk boxes from the supermarket. That's very practical, right? It's a good USP. That's what the competitors don't have, but we're a much smaller company. We don't have that huge of a budget to compete on paid ads. So compete on something else. So going back to, what do the user need? What's related to this that the user might need? It's difficult, right? If we go back to the surface, what's difficult to do for the users is, or the potential customers, for example, it's difficult to calculate how much milk / how many cartons you should purchase per how many weeks. So then we create the calculator that they can use for free. So they land on this page, they can use the calculator for free, and then in between, trying to be really careful not to break, the user flow or / the reading flow. We have a feature linked to a banner that actually you can opt in, and then you can actually have the calculation also included there. How many milk boxes, for instance, that you need per how many week, and then you can opt whether you want to purchase or not. And that way is like a win-win. You have something valuable for the users, but you can also have something valuable for the business.
Thank you, Yudith. Very, very good answer. And before I dive into the last question I have for today, I wanted to say our viewers that this is probably your last chance to write your question in the chat. So don't hesitate to do that. So the thing that I wanted to talk about is data. Listening into all of your answers, I actually did one conclusion that data is very important. You cannot do the keyword analysis, the topic analysis. You cannot understand your users without research, without having some data analyzed. And I think everybody will agree that marketing and especially SEO is now very data driven. So we need tools, we need information. And I wanted to ask each of you, but I'll probably start with Karolina. What is your must-have data? What is your essential reports, insights as an SEO specialist that you cannot work without?
Do you mean the metric that is a must-have for me?
Like in general, data, maybe some reports, for example, competitor researches,
right.
Some keyword researches. We already been talking about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I always need to know what is the traffic flow. So if I don't know if there is a traffic coming or not, it's typically there won't be revenue, because how else would people actually buy? So I start with traffic. I mean, what comes before it is ranking. So if we are ranking, even if we're say have very good positions, but it's on poorly chosen keywords, maybe very low volume, then of course we won't see that huge impact on the traffic. And on the other hand, if we are targeting keywords that are too large, or the keyword difficulty is too big, and we're just stuck on page 2 or on page 3, that traffic is also not going to come in. So I always start with traffic. Other things that I'm looking at, it's more of a business metric than SEO. So leads, So if the users are taking action, because that will give me an indication that if they already clicked, there might be revenue coming in. So as I said, traffic is number one, but I heavily look into ranking as well. And so taking even a step back, so what data I need there, keyword research to identify those keywords so that I can strategically make a decision. What is the search intent that we have the chance to rank for? How are we bringing this traffic? And so the SEO metrics will come before, so that I can feed the business metrics and build a strategy based on that.
Great. Tessah, what is your must-have data for building effective SEO strategy?
It's always for me competitive analysis, but I like to call it opportunity analysis. Because every time because I was thinking, what is that most important thing for me? And then, okay, every time I would go and attend a discovery call or a sales call for our agency, I would like to check that client's website. And then the first thing that I would ask myself, what is something that we could do for this client? So that is always analyzing the competition. But because we are trying to move away, focusing on just the keyword gap, I am heavily, I'm guilty of this. For the past, I started doing SEO in 2009, but I primarily build sites for myself, building and ranking, flipping sites. So I'm so guilty of this, just always focusing about the gaps, content gap, keyword gap, name it. But because I said to myself, I want to build a brand. I don't want to just use SEO just to rank keywords. So I said, how could I be independent um of Google, but still I'm doing SEO? So I said, there's no way but to do branding. And how do you brand yourself? You need to get or move past the thinking of you want to just target the gaps. Stop thinking about analyzing the gaps, but you need to also analyze the your total addressable market, or what they call the TAM. And usually I didn't study that because I heavily focus on that gaps. But to be honest, there is more than that. And this year, or this Q3 or Q4, that's our focus, to really hone our system to address not just the gap, but because all SEO are working on that gap, and we are looking on our competitors. And because we're so heavily focused on our competition, everybody is doing the same. And then we forget the things that we and the competition are not doing. That is the total addressable market. So I want to learn how to do that. I'm not an expert on that yet because I've been used and trained to do gaps and work on that. So I think that is the most important data that we need to look right now, especially that Google is doing all of these massive updates a lot. There's May and there's the July. And I think we really need to focus on our branding and address the gap. So then we could leverage that gap, make those traffic sign up, and then we control the traffic. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Tessah. That's very good advice. Thanks. Yudith, interesting to hear your opinion. What do you think is a must-have data for SEO specialists? What do you use in your day-to-day job? What reports, insights do you analyze?
So before I give my actual answer, just to emphasize that this is like my answer is heavily influenced by the fact that I am in-house, and of course the state of the company and the business niche, because I think that's really important to say before, because due to the session, before everyone is just swallowing it whole, let's say. Yeah. So I always want to know in terms of like content and technical, what is working, what is not working, and why. And what I always like to do is also check in with the other team members, that because, SEO is not a channel owner in comparison to like others in marketing. They are actually channels like social ads. They are kind of like a channel, and we are a process. So we are everywhere. So I make use of that fact that I am everywhere and ask everybody, okay, can I get an update about this, about that? What are you doing? How's everything going? And then you can see exactly what Tessah said. You can see the plethora of like opportunities of what you can do, and a lot of opportunities to collab. This you might not have been able to do in different kind of situation and different kind of let's say scenario of what the state of the company is at. For example, if it's just like a small company, for instance, that just started, you might not need a huge tool like Ahrefs, for example, because you not necessarily need to do yet a big competitor analysis. Moz, for example, might just be enough. But still, the basic tools like to know if you're working off, of course, like crawlability, you want to work on a crawl budget, you want to work on the site structure. There are basic tools that you can do the data you need like to crawl the whole site like Screaming Frog. So I think these are like different things that you need to like have a good balance in combining, and also have a cross check again with the goals, because as an SEO professional, we all want to have a clear planning, right? We all want to have a clear SEO roadmap. And then it's important to go back to there and cross check. What is it that I am focusing on? And then you see the set of data. Oh, actually, this is what I'm looking at. This is what's working. This is what's not. This is the opportunity. Am I still aligned, or am I missing something? You know, so it's always good to have it in check. And when you see, I'm working on ABC project and there's actually an extra opportunity, maybe I need a different set of data to work on. So it's always good to have that in check. For example, like right now we are working on optimizing the shop. And by that, meaning we have in the magazine also fixing, for example, we are optimizing in terms of the banners, for example, that a part of it is also we send them off to the shop. So we have a shop banner, for example, and then of course, then it needs appropriate tracking. Then meaning we have a different set of data, and maybe with all these kind of different data, in the end of the day, for example, it's more convenient to have everything in one place in a dashboard. You know, it brings a different approach altogether, I guess.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, ladies, for those answers. We actually got a few more questions in the chat, meanwhile, when you've been answering my question. So the first question is from Philip. He's asking if building organic links takes time and resources, and are paid quality links still effective, and should it be considered? Maybe Karolina will try to answer this question.
Sure, and I think we already have a very good answer in the chat by Dan. So I would definitely echo that it's important to avoid the tags that is sponsored or no follow. I think whatever link building approach you take, it will take some sort of resources. Either like if you're outsourcing it to a vendor, it will take your financial resources, or if you have someone in-house to do it, of course, will take HR resources. So either way, you might save time here and there, but it will take some time. So there is no one shortcut, at least in my experience. How I would always approach link building is more in the form of partnerships. So if it provides genuine value, say to link to your website, that would be the way to go. And you can do it both in organic and paid way. I'm always very careful when considering, paid link building tactics. However, I know that they might be effective. So definitely start with very high quality websites, see if they are according to your industry, and start first with partnerships, because they should last if nurtured correctly.
That's very true. And the last question from our viewers is from Sunny. Does free or paid SEO plugins make much difference? And do you recommend any SEO plugins? Tessah, maybe you'll try to answer this one.
I don't. We don't use SEO plugins. Well, I mean, just to automate meta description, we do a Yoast, but I think everybody is using rank math. But that is one misconception to a lot of people, and I'd like to say that I ranked and flipped sites without looking on those SEO plugins. When it comes to SEO plugins, because I don't want to count Google Analytics plugins all of this as an SEO. But if we were talking about Yoast and Rank Math, I don't believe that they are important. One, because we don't use those plugins, and we are ranking and flipping sites, and without looking them. I think what those plugins do is just to automate what you should know as an SEO specialist. So at the end of the day, it's always human versus tools. And for these plugins, usually they would just help you work on your on page. And I think if you just want to automate your meta description, then fine, you can use them. But it's not going to be because a lot of mommy bloggers, I'm talking to a lot of mommy bloggers, they think that if they upload or they activate Yoast and then they're golden, which is actually not true. And some bloggers would think, oh, RankMan is better, then I would just use it and then I'm golden, which is actually not true. So I don't use those plugins, and I would say that it's not that important.
Got it. Yudith, would you agree with that? Are you using any SEO plugins? Maybe you have another opinion.
I'm not also a fan of those plugins, to be honest, because they just fulfill the bare minimum that any CMS should have had in the first place. So just to clear up, the myth there that exactly what Tessah said, it's not gold. It doesn't solve everything, because actually to properly optimize, there are a lot of other things that these plugins doesn't do, unfortunately, just so everybody knows.
Amazing. Thanks a lot for this answer. And in general, thank you, ladies, for this amazing conversation, for your contribution. I think our viewers got a lot of insights, a lot of learnings from our today's conversation. I also want to thanks for all of these questions that have been in the chat. It really made our conversation even more interesting. I also have a couple of more questions, more slides. We've been talking a lot about different SEO tools to use today, and I wanted to present Seo Checker by our team at Plurdy, which is basically a tool that does a lot of things that we've been talking about today: keyword analysis, SEO audits. So we actually have a lot of cases in which SEO Checker by Plurdy helps to optimize your web pages, optimize your keywords, helps to find pages with critical SEO errors, pages that are worth to pay attention to, and pages without errors. And in the description to our stream, you can find a link to the SEO case where we show how using Plurdy Seo Checker can help you increase impressions across your optimized pages, can help to add new keywords, and to enhance the positions of your existing keywords on your pages. So I really encourage you to check out this case. And also, we are happy to offer all of our attendees a discount, 30% discounts on all yearly Plurdy plans. You will get a promo code for this discount by email. We will send a link to the recording, which will be available very soon, and we'll send the promo code. So make sure to check out the Plurdy to try our SEO Checker, to try the heat maps, session recordings, event tracking, sales performance tracking. These are all the things that really help SEO specialists in their day-to-day job. Also, follow us on social media. As I said in the beginning, our team pretty often organize different webinars, different events. So make sure to follow us and to attend next events. We are very happy to see you all on some of our next panel discussions or webinars. Again, thanks a lot to our amazing speakers, Tessah, Karolina, Yudith. You did a great job, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.